Hello, littering friend. I'm Sarah from Ensign Insights, and today let's review Dom's brush pens. I'm going to compare them to other pens, see how they do for hand lettering, swatch the colors, use them as watercolor, and finally make a piece in my journal. And first, I have to tell you, I'm a little embarrassed because I bought these in April 2021, and now it's September 2022. It's been a crazy few years, right? Can I still blame COVID? I don't know. But because it's been so long, they are not sold on Amazon anymore where I originally bought them, and I couldn't find anywhere to buy them in the US as of filming this. They were less than $10 when I got them, which is really cheap. They're made in India, and I've been told they're really cheap there. This has been a highly requested review, so let's get into it. As you can see, I have the pack with 14 colors, and it also came with 5 sheets of watercolor paper. Here is what the brush pen looks like up close, and opening it up, you can see the brush tip is really pointy. And I wanted to see how it compares to some brush pens that I already have. So I pulled out my Tombow dual brush pen and my Zebra Mildlighter brush pen, and they are a similar size. The Tombow is the largest and the Dom's is a little bit smaller, but it's pretty similar in length of the brush tip. The Tombow and Zebra both have fine tips. The Dom's does not have a fine tip. It's not dual-ended. Next, I'm going to pull out my HP Premium 32 paper. It's smooth enough that it won't fray brush pens, and let's test it out, see how it does for hand lettering. It is a flexible tip, so you can get the thin upstroke and the thick downstroke. It can get really chunky, like probably the chunkiest brush pen that I've ever used. I will also say it's very soft. So if you prefer a brush tip that is more firm, you are not going to like these. You have to have a lot of control to be able to get your thin strokes and thick strokes and the transition in between. Like I said, it's really, really chunky. And I do like you can get different variations of your thick downstrokes. So you can do really chunky or a little bit lighter. And it does take a lot of control, like I said, because it is a very soft tip. So these were feeling pretty similar to the Camlin brush pens. Those ones are also really soft. And something that I heard is that if you start with Camlin or Dom's, then you can basically hand letter with any type of pen because they're so soft. You have to use so much control that then when you go to a firmer brush tip, it's like way easier. So in writing with the Tombow, the brush tip is a little more firm, so I have a little more control on the upstrokes, and I normally don't love the Tombow. It's not my favorite, but it is easier to letter with than Dom's. And then with the Zebra brush pens, these ones are currently my most used large brush tips, and they are great. So it's a lot easier to letter with the Zebra brush pens. And then I thought it felt really similar to the Ecoline brush pens. These ones are also really soft, and I found that the brush tip is a little bit smaller on the Ecoline, so it couldn't get quite the same amount. And if you've ever tried Ecoline, you know that they are really soft, but they are a little bit more firm than the Dom's. So that goes to show how soft the Dom's are. Then I decided to pull out my Camlin brush pens because I wanted to see the difference, because I remember the Camlin being really, really soft. So I wanted to see if there are any difference at all. And actually, they're pretty similar. I think the Dom's feel like a little bit nicer quality, maybe. I don't know. Tell me what you think. That's just how it felt to me. But honestly, they are very similar, both really, really soft, hard to control. But if you can control these, like someone said, it will be easier to use any other brush pen. And now let's go ahead and swatch them with the colors. And as I did the red, I realized I used an apostrophe, and it didn't need an apostrophe, but I just didn't want to redo it. So the 14 colors are very vibrant. They are also really, really juicy. So similar to how juicy the Ecoline brush pens are, these are probably just slightly under that, which is why I thought they would be great for watercolor. And so I'm going to show you that in just a minute. But as we finish up these colors, I just also wanted to mention that I have been decluttering my pens. So as I'm reviewing these, I don't want you to think that you have to buy all the pens. If these are available to you and they're easy for you to get, then definitely try them. But I just used to think that I had to have all the pens and try all the pens, and it got really overwhelming, and I started decluttering them and seeing the benefits of having less pens, and I'm way more creative when I actually have less pens. But I do have a drawer still that is a stash of pens waiting to be reviewed. So I have a few more review videos coming to close that up. And then I think I'm going to go back through the current pens that I have and maybe walk with you through how I'm going to go about decluttering them. I do have one decluttering pen video already, and it's crazy. I got rid of so many pens, and yet still I have way more than I'll ever even be able to use. So I've realized if I'm not using them, I need to give them a new life. Next, I pulled out the Camlin watercolor paper, and I love that it was included in here. I am pretty sure that means they are meant to be watercolor. And it comes with 5 sheets. I love Camlin watercolor paper. I decided to cut it down to be bookmark size so I could make one of my rainbow background bookmarks. I don't like to use my brush pens directly on the watercolor paper just because it is rough paper and might fray them a little bit sooner. But I love to use them as watercolor like this. So I just scribble the ink onto the palette, and then I use my water brush and I use them as watercolor that way. And as I started doing these colors, I realized that these are amazing for watercolor. These are so vibrant. I have tested this technique, this rainbow watercolor background, with every single one of my brush pens. I do have a full video comparing all of them, and I know I would have to see them all together to know this for sure, but I am almost positive that this could be the most vibrant of all of them. Like, it was shockingly vibrant to me. So although I don't know if I'm going to be using them as brush pens very much, I love them for watercolor. So then with my watercolor bookmark, once it was dry, I wrote out grow so that I could add it. And I'm just going in with pencil, but I know that I'm pretty sure where I'm going to do it because it's hard to erase on top of the watercolor. I didn't want to ruin it. So then I'm going in with my Marvy Deco Color in gold and just adding the lettering to the top of here. And the whole time I'm just thinking, this is so vibrant. These colors look so good as watercolor. And when I use them as this watercolor background like this, adding the water tends to wash it out a little bit, so it's lighter than it would originally be, but not with these ones. They are so vibrant. And I love how this little bookmark turned out. So next, I wanted to do something in my hand lettering journal. If you're new here, I have a hand lettering journal. It's just a book filled with my own hand lettering. So I'm using gold acrylic paint to add the sun. And I originally wanted to do something in my journal doing the lettering with the pens, but I just didn't really feel like it. So I decided to go with whatever I was feeling. And that's the point of my hand lettering journal. I get to do whatever I want with it. And I didn't feel like lettering with them, which maybe is a sign that I'm not going to use them for lettering very much. So I added this tiny little quote with my Jelly Roll gel pen. And then I went in with the stripes with my Dom's brush pens, and I think this turned out great. The colors are so vibrant. They look great with the gold acrylic paint. So would I recommend these brush pens to beginners? Probably not, unless they're the only kinds of brush pens that you can get and they're really easy for you to get, then yeah, try them. But just know they are really soft, so they are hard to control. But if you can learn how to control them, then you're going to have an easier time with other brush pens. If you are really struggling with them, try different brush pens and see if that helps you. Will I be using these, or am I going to declutter them? I think I'm going to use them as watercolor a lot because that was so vibrant. They're so pretty. And I do like how these background stripes are turning out. So I don't think I'm going to use them a lot for hand lettering, but I do think that I will keep them at least for a little bit and see if I end up using them. I also added some watercolor lettering and a little rainbow background. It did ruffle my page a little bit, but I was okay with that. I love how they turned out. If you want to see my other brush pen reviews, I'll link that playlist right here. I do have a review on other international pens, including the Camlin brush pens. So definitely check that out, and I will see you next time.